Warning: this is not a story about jealousy. This is the chronicle of a perfect betrayal and the intellectual awakening of one woman. What do you do when your partner publicly manipulates you, forces you to choose between your dignity and your love, and turns your relationship into a circus? Most would cry. She, however, decided to change the rules of the game. Get ready to witness how a brilliant mind executes the coldest, yet sweetest, psychological revenge. My boyfriend texted me tonight. We need to have a serious conversation. It seemed normal, mundane. But yesterday, my entire feed saw the photo. A public image, him cooking in another woman's kitchen. Who does something like that in plain sight while they still have a girlfriend? I froze, staring at the screen, my hands shaking. This wasn't a rumor. It wasn't a paparazzi shot. He had posted it himself, smiling widely, looking exactly like a happy couple living together. I was 28, working in marketing in Boston, and I never imagined I'd become the laughingstock like this. After all the years we'd been together, I trusted he would at least maintain a minimum of respect. Yet, with a single photo, every boundary shattered. I didn't know what was more chilling, that he disrespected me so blatantly in front of everyone, or that she stood there, allowing him to play house in her kitchen. And now, after all that, he was texting me as if nothing had happened. What the hell was he planning to tell me tonight? I had known Alejandro for 2 years. In those 2 years, if anyone asked me, I would smile and say I had found a decent man. Thoughtful, stable. His family seemed to like me too. Once, his mother even told me, "You are good for his career." Hearing that gave me peace of mind. I thought I was on the right track, that one day we'd build our own home. But everything began to crack over something that seemed small. One afternoon, Alejandro came home, tossed his bag on the table, and casually said, "Oh, Camila texted me. She's having trouble with her roommate." The girl had suddenly moved out, and now Camila couldn't afford the rent. I was about to ask if he wanted me to share a roommate ad online or contact my friends, but before I could speak, he continued, as if presenting the most reasonable solution in the world. "I'm moving in with Camila for a few weeks. I'll help split the rent. As soon as she finds someone new, I'll move back." I looked at him, thinking I'd misheard. "Alejandro, you're kidding, right?" He frowned, shaking his head. "No, I'm serious. She's stuck. What else can she do?" I was too stunned to react. "You think moving in with another woman while you have a girlfriend is normal?" The look in his eyes made me tremble. There was no trace of guilt, just a strange pride, as if he expected me to feel grateful for his generosity. "Clara, you're overreacting. This is just helping a friend," he said. "If you trust me, this shouldn't be an issue." I clenched my fists, trying to stay calm. "Alejandro, this isn't about trust. It's about boundaries. Friends can help in many ways. Finding a new tenant, lending short-term money, even covering some expenses. But you decide to move in with her. No couple views that as normal." He shrugged, his tone mocking. "You're always talking about boundaries. I think you're being selfish. Camila needs support, and all you care about are your own feelings." That word, selfish, sliced through my chest. I had gotten used to him twisting situations whenever we disagreed, but this time, the way he painted me as the villain hurt and enraged me. I asked him directly, "Do you ever think about how I feel? That I would have to watch my boyfriend move in with another woman and convince myself to trust you every night?" Alejandro leaned back, arms crossed, looking at me like a teacher scolding a slow student. "The problem is you don't have enough trust. If you really trusted me, it wouldn't matter where I was or who I was with." I jumped up, pacing the living room, Memories flooded my mind. All the times I had compromised, given in to maintain peace. And now, when I drew a simple line, I was labeled selfish and insecure. Alejandro, stop distorting this. It's not about trust. It's about you not respecting me or this relationship when you make a decision that you know will hurt me. He pressed his lips together, then smiled smugly. You're trying to dictate what I do again. You want to forbid me from helping my friend. Can't you see how unreasonable you sound? The way he framed it, every word I said became control or lack of trust. I realized this was no longer a normal argument. It was a mind game where Alejandro was deliberately setting me up as the antagonist. We argued all night. I presented every option: roommate apps, real estate services. I even offered Camila a few hundred myself to tide her over. But Alejandro dismissed it all, insisting, the only effective way is for me to move in. Why does it have to be you? Why can't Camila find someone else or take responsibility for her own life? The more I thought about it, the more uneasy I felt. Camila wasn't helpless. She had a stable job, a college degree, a wide circle of friends. Yet Alejandro painted her as a defenseless victim to justify his choice. So, out of all the options, you chose the one that hurts me the most, and you expect me to applaud you for it. He stared at me, his eyes so strange I shivered. Maybe I had never truly known him. That Friday, Alejandro said he was going to Camila's to help her prepare the empty room for a new tenant. He said he might be late, and though I felt uncomfortable, I decided not to argue anymore. I thought, let him act and the truth will reveal itself. The next morning, as I woke up, my phone vibrated. A message popped up, a photo of Alejandro lying in bed, a shirtless selfie, his face smug. The caption was short, but enough to make my blood boil. Trust is everything. I had expected a message saying, sorry I'm late, didn't mean to worry you. Instead, he had deliberately sent me that photo. A direct hit to my confidence and self-esteem. I called immediately. He answered so fast it seemed he'd been waiting. Alejandro, what are you doing? My voice shook with rage. He chuckled, the sound light, as if nothing mattered. Clara, I wanted to be transparent. You always say I should be honest, right? Now you see exactly where I am and what I'm doing. What could be clearer? Transparent? Sending your girlfriend a photo of you in another woman's bed and calling that transparency? Do you realize how insulting this is? I snapped. You're overreacting. If you trust me, this isn't a problem. I gripped the phone, feeling I was talking to someone who thrived on twisting the truth into a lie. Alejandro offered zero apologies. He was enjoying my torment, as if this whole thing were a test. I hung up, throwing the phone onto the table. I told myself I needed space to breathe, not to explode in my small apartment. But minutes later, Messenger lit up. The sender wasn't Alejandro, but Camila. Her message was short. If you want to keep Alejandro, grow up. Men can't stand weak, clingy girls. Don't make him choose, because the outcome will never be in your favor. I had never spoken to Camila. She had no right to interfere in my relationship. Yet here she was, speaking like an infiltrator, even sitting on a throne, passing judgment. I typed out every word. Camila, who do you think you are? But then I deleted it. I didn't send it. I knew that was exactly what they wanted. To see me angry. To see me lose control. I froze, reliving every moment of the past few weeks. Alejandro told me Camila was stuck because her roommate moved out. Alejandro insisted only he could help. And now Camila was texting me in a conspiratorial tone, as if they had plotted together to humiliate me. The phone rang again. This time it was Alejandro. His voice was light, like a passing breeze. I know Camila texted you. She cares. Don't be so hard on her. I gave a dry laugh. Cares? A woman texts her roommate's girlfriend, calls her weak, and that's caring? Alejandro, do you hear yourself? He shifted his tone, flat and rehearsed like a memorized lesson. The problem isn't Camila. The problem is you. You are too sensitive. If you were more mature, none of this would have happened. That phrase, the problem is you cut like a knife. He was bending reality, turning me into the villain of my own relationship. That night, I sat by the window, the street lights pouring through the glass. I remembered when we first met, when Alejandro took me to small restaurants, talking about his career dreams. And I believed in that version of him. But now, it had all warped into a psychological game, where he and Camila teamed up to push me into a dark corner. The rage burned, the pain lingered, but I knew that if I stayed silent, they would think they had won. And in that moment, I decided I would not be the victim anymore. That evening, I arrived at the restaurant 15 minutes early. The golden light fell across the wooden table. The smell of roasted coffee mingled with a hint of wine. I tried to imagine what Alejandro would say. For a second, I wanted to believe he would apologize, that his actions were a stupid impulse. Alejandro walked in, moving casually as if nothing had happened. He pulled out a chair across from me, giving me a slight smile, the same smile that once felt warm, but now chilled me to the bone. "Thanks for coming. I think we need a mature conversation," Alejandro began, calm as a professor about to give a lecture. I held his gaze without saying a word. I wanted to hear exactly how he planned to explain himself. He took a deep breath, then launched into a series of well-prepared lines. "Clara, every relationship needs trust and sacrifice. I sense your lack of confidence. You act as if I'm doing something terrible, when I'm just helping an old friend in a difficult time. If you handled this with more composure, you'd understand this is normal." "Normal? Sleeping at her place, sending your girlfriend a shirtless photo, and calling that normal?" Alejandro raised his eyebrows, his face calm to the point of arrogance. "That was me being transparent. I didn't want to hide anything. You should feel secure that I'm willing to be open." I looked into his eyes, searching for remorse, but all I saw was smugness. "So why did you call me today?" Alejandro clasped his hands on the table, leaning forward to make it clear. "I'm moving in with Camila. That's my decision. She needs me, and I can't turn my back on a friend because you're uncomfortable." My chest tightened, but I forced my voice to stay firm. "So, no matter how I feel, you've already decided." "Yes, this is what I have to do. If you truly love me, you'll understand." I tilted my head, speaking clearly. "What if I made the same decision? If a friend of mine was displaced and I decided to move in with him for a few weeks, Alejandro, would you accept that?" He gave a short laugh, dripping with contempt. "Clara, that's a false comparison. Completely different." "Different how?" I didn't break eye contact. He waved a hand, his tone rougher. "Because I trust you. I wouldn't feel threatened if you had male friends. But my situation is necessary. Camila has no one else." Alejandro wasn't blind. He wasn't overly kind or manipulated. He knew exactly what he was doing. The supposed help for a friend was a cover. What he wanted was control, the power to redefine what was right and wrong, to paint me as controlling and immature. I leaned back, exhaling slowly. It was all clear as day. "Alejandro, what you really want is to control me. You want to force me to choose between my dignity and staying with you." He frowned, his voice hissing. "You always turn everything into a problem. It's impossible to talk to you. Impossible because you never actually want to listen." I walked out of the restaurant that night in a different state of mind. No more explosive rage. No more desperate arguments to prove I was right. I understood that debating Alejandro only exhausted me. He wasn't seeking understanding. He wanted to trap me in his game. So, I wouldn't react anymore. I would be silent, but not submissive. The kind of silence seasoned with sweetness and irony. The kind that would throw him off balance. That night, Alejandro texted me. I bought an extra small suitcase. I'll start packing tomorrow. I looked at the message, pursing my lips. Before, I would have written a long reply full of questions and accusations. But this time, I typed quickly. That's great. Don't forget to pack an extra toothbrush for Camila so she doesn't think you're unprepared. Seconds later, my phone rang. Alejandro's voice betrayed his unease. Clara, what is that supposed to mean? I feigned surprise. Supposed to mean what? I'm supporting you. Roommates should have personal items, right? I imagined his face tightening, struggling to frame a response. He was used to me, yelling, crying, or arguing, but this sudden sweetness threw him off. Stop it! Stop being sarcastic, he mumbled, annoyed. I smiled slightly, but kept my tone sweet. Who said I was being sarcastic? I genuinely wish you and Camila happiness. Alejandro exhaled sharply, then rushed to change the subject. I'm doing this for you, Clara, to prove I have nothing to hide. I know, I replied softly, and I truly appreciate that transparency. Alejandro wanted me to explode. He needed me angry to keep his narrative alive. Controlling Clara. Immature Clara. When I didn't follow the script, he lost his footing. The next day, I made sure to act unusually cheerful. Alejandro sent a photo of packed cardboard boxes. I replied, wrap your shirts carefully. Camila will probably love seeing you organized. He sent back a question mark. I added, just encouraging you. Later, he sent a photo of his dismantled desk. I wrote, don't forget the desk lamp. Camila might need extra light when you two stay up late working. I could imagine his jaw clenching reading those words. He wanted me to fight, and instead, I showered him with calm mockery. That night, when Alejandro called, I answered in an unusually cheerful tone. You sound different. Why aren't you mad? Mad about what? You've already decided. All I can do is support you. Then he pressed. Are you really okay? I'm great. I even feel relieved. That answer shook him even more. I knew I had hit a nerve. Alejandro thrived on controlling my emotions. Without that, he would have to face himself. In the days that followed, I stopped arguing, stopped trying to reason. I replied to every message with sweet, cutting support. I bet Camila is a wonderful cook. Don't forget to compliment her and buy flowers for the living room. Every woman loves a man who pays attention to details. Alejandro grew impatient. He called non-stop, his voice a mix of rage and worry. What game are you playing, Clara? I replied softly. No game. I'm just learning to be mature, just like you and Camila advised me. At that moment, I heard his sharp intake of breath, as if he couldn't swallow his own words. If he saw everything as an elaborate game of control, then I would change the rules. The name Mateo came to mind on a Tuesday morning. Mateo had been a college classmate, now an architect in Boston. Back then, he liked me, but I turned him down because I had started dating Alejandro. Still, we maintained a distant friendship, occasionally sending birthday wishes on Facebook. I sent Mateo a short message. Do you have time for coffee? I need to talk. Not even 10 minutes later, Mateo replied, Of course, when do you want to meet? We agreed to meet at a quiet cafe downtown. When I walked in, Mateo was already sitting near the window, the light falling across his face, looking as stable as ever. Clara. Mateo stood up, his warm smile familiar. It's been forever. I felt a strange relief being with someone who didn't judge, who didn't play mind games. I need some air. Alejandro, he's turning everything into a nightmare. I gave him a brief rundown. Alejandro moving to Camila's, the blatant photos, the speeches about trust and maturity. When I mentioned Camila's mocking text, my voice cracked. Mateo squeezed his coffee cup, his eyes darkening. I can't believe this. What kind of man thinks that's normal? I gave him a bitter smile. Alejandro called me selfish for not supporting him. No, Clara, he's the selfish one, and he's a fool if he thinks you'd stand for it. That simple statement felt like a lifeline. For the first time, I heard a voice affirming that I wasn't crazy, I wasn't immature. As we left, Mateo suggested a selfie to commemorate our reunion. I agreed. In the photo, we smiled naturally, the afternoon light streaming in through the window behind us. I posted it directly to my Instagram story with the caption, "It feels good to be around someone who respects boundaries." 10 minutes later, my phone wouldn't stop ringing. Alejandro called. I didn't answer. He called again and again. I let it ring. Then, the text messages piled up. "Where are you? Who is that man? What are you trying to do, Clara?" I laughed. So many nights I had cried over his provocations. And now he was the one crumbling. Finally, I picked up. His voice was saturated with rage. "What the hell do you think you're doing?" I replied calmly. "Just getting coffee. An old friend. I didn't hide anything." "You always said friendships with the opposite sex are fine as long as they're transparent, right?" I heard his teeth grind. "You are retaliating." "No, I'm learning. Like you said, I'm testing you." Alejandro sharply inhaled, trying to stifle his fury. Then his voice dropped, every word clipped. "Clara, don't push me." I looked out the cafe window at the busy street, feeling strangely at peace. "Push you? You set these terms. I'm just playing by your rules." I hung up before he could reply. All night, my phone lit up with his messages. Sometimes pleading, "I want you to trust me." Sometimes blaming, "You're destroying this relationship." I read them, but didn't reply. Instead, I texted Mateo. "Thank you. Talking to you today made me feel lighter." He replied almost instantly. "Anytime. You deserve respect." And then, Alejandro moved in with Camila on a rainy Boston weekend. I looked at the messages he sent me, photos of boxes and suitcases, his bland lines about how reasonable it all was, and I felt a chill. But I no longer let those images dictate my emotions. I knew that to ruin the script he had written, I needed a different path. And that path had the name Mateo. Mateo didn't pry. He just showed up when I needed him. We walked through the weekend farmer's market, past stalls of chrysanthemums, red apples, and jars of honey gleaming in the sunday. I laughed as he handed me a bag of cherry tomatoes, saying, "Try these, they're sweet." My phone vibrated relentlessly. Alejandro called again and again. I ignored him. The text messages piled up. "Who are you with? Clara, answer me. Do you think this is okay?" I placed my phone face down on the wooden table, smiling at Mateo. "You're right. These tomatoes are sweet." Mateo smiled gently, his eyes warm, asking nothing further. The next day, we went to an art exhibit. Abstract paintings lined the walls, soft lights tracing every brushstroke. Mateo was beside me, tilting his head slightly. "Do you see yourself in this painting? Half light, half shadow, but together they form something powerful." I was paralyzed. I had tried to make Mateo's presence part of a counterpunch against Alejandro, but his words conveyed a sincerity I couldn't ignore. I took a photo, our hands holding the exhibition catalog, captioned simply, "Being with someone who sees your worth, priceless. This time, Alejandro's reaction was explosive. My phone would not stop buzzing. His messages read, "You're trying to provoke me. Clara, don't act like a child. Final warning. Stop seeing that guy." I read them and smiled. I wrote a single reply. "You're with Camila. Remember?" Then I slid my phone back into my purse, listening to Mateo describe his sketches for a new project. His voice was steady, unhurried, as if our time together existed outside of any storm. But Alejandro wasn't the only one rattled. Camila also started showing her irritation. One night, I stumbled upon her story, a snapshot of her kitchen with the caption, "Some people just can't handle their boyfriends having female friends." How funny! I smirked. She was taking a jab at me, flaunting the superiority she thought she had because Alejandro lived with her. But to me, it only revealed Camila's insecurity. I let the direct silence sit. Instead, I posted another photo, a coffee cup on the table with Mateo blurred in the background, leaning over his sketches. Caption: "Some people don't need to sink others to prove their worth." Within an hour, my friends messaged me. "Clara, you are getting bold. Alejandro must be losing it. Camila won't sit still either." I replied with a laughing emoji. That night, Alejandro called, his voice almost a growl. "Why do you keep showing up with that guy?" I replied slowly. "Mateo is an old friend. Didn't you say opposite-sex friendships are fine if they're transparent? I'm being transparent with you. Don't twist my words against me. This is not the same." "Why not?" I calmly interrupted. "You moved in with another woman. I've only had coffee and gone to an exhibit with a friend. If there's a difference, what is it?" I heard his breathing quicken. "Clara, I won't accept this." "You don't have the right to accept or not, Alejandro," I said slowly. "You lost that right the moment you moved in with Camila." I ended the call, leaving him to stew in the silence. In the following days, Mateo and I continued to meet. We didn't always take photos, but every moment I shared was enough to show Alejandro and Camila that I was no longer playing the part of the abandoned woman in their story. And slowly, I realized it wasn't just Alejandro's jealous outburst. Camila was also starting to feel her position slipping away. On a Thursday night, checking my phone before bed, a friend sent me a link. "Clara, have you seen this? I think you need to." I tapped it. A newly created TikTok channel appeared with a name that sounded like a joke. Roomy Vibes. And in every clip, I saw Alejandro and Camila acting like adorable roommates. First clip, Alejandro busy in the kitchen. Camila giggling as she filmed him flipping eggs in a pan. Caption: "When your roommate turns into a reluctant chef." Next clip, the two of them on the couch, steaming coffee mugs in front of them. Alejandro saying something that made Camila burst into laughter. Caption: "Living with your best friend is truly the best." Every image stung my pride. Alejandro had moved in with Camila openly, and then he turned it into a public spectacle for the world to comment on, leaving hearts and calling them so cute. Couple goals. My blood boiled. But instead of panicking, I quietly took screenshots, saving every clip. A thought crossed my mind. "All right, Alejandro, you like making this public? Then let's make it truly public." I opened a group chat with some of Alejandro's closest friends, the ones he always tried to impress as a model man. I sent every screenshot with a brief line. Maybe everyone should see a little of Alejandro's new life. I didn't stop there. I messaged his parents directly. His parents are very traditional and very concerned with family image, valuing morality. I wrote, "Mr. and Mrs., I think you should know what Alejandro is doing." 10 minutes later, my phone rang. It was Alejandro's mother. Her voice was trembling with anger. "Clara, what is this? He's living like that? I replied softly. I didn't want to make a scene, but since you are Alejandro's mother, I thought you deserved to see it. She took heavy, ragged breaths. He dares to turn everything into a mockery. Does he know how this ruins our family's honor? Alejandro had always been proud of his family, always boasting that he was his parents' pride. But now that image was crumbling. That night, Alejandro texted me non-stop. First, why did you send that to my parents? And finally, you are destroying my life. I let the silence sit. I wanted him to sit alone, choking on the consequences of his own arrogance. The next morning, I got a call from one of Alejandro's friends, a guy named Ricardo. His tone was part angry, part mocking. Clara, he's lost all dignity. Last night, the whole group saw the clips. No one could believe it. How does Alejandro plan to live when he's made himself a public clown? I laughed softly. Maybe he thought he was playing the hero. Ricardo scoffed. Hero? All we saw was a fool. That afternoon, Alejandro called. This time, his voice wasn't furious, but shocked. Clara, you know what my parents think now. They are in shock. They said, I've disgraced the family. I replied quietly. I only showed them the truth you tried to hide. Alejandro, you posted those clips, not me. He tried to control himself. You don't understand. They'll never look at me the same way again. You know I can't stand being looked down upon. Then maybe you should have thought about that before putting yourself in that position. On the other side, Alejandro sighed heavily. I could hear the tension in every breath. He had always been obsessed with being the successful, respectable son, and now his own parents were demanding, "What are you doing with your life? You've turned a mockery into reality." I could picture him in Camila's apartment, the phone vibrating with messages from parents and friends, his previously confident face twisted with shame. For Alejandro, losing dignity with me wasn't enough, but losing credibility with his family, that was the real blow. I chose the Italian restaurant on Charles Street, the place tied to so many memories with Alejandro. He used to take me there for birthdays, anniversaries, but recently, I found out he had also taken Camila there, turning what was once ours into a stage for his adorable roomy life. That's why I chose this very spot for my plan. Mateo and I arrived early. The restaurant was warm as always, the golden candlelight shining on the brick walls, the soft clinking of cutlery, murmurs of conversation, and the scent of garlic and tomato sauce. I chose a table by the window, prominent enough to be noticed the moment anyone walked in. Mateo looked elegant in a smoky gray shirt under a navy blazer. He pulled out my chair with a warm smile. "Are you sure this is what you want, Clara?" I spoke calmly. "Clearly this isn't a game. This is how I show him I'm not the silent one anymore." We ordered wine. Mateo spoke lightly, sharing stories about his architecture firm, making me laugh softly from time to time. Everything between us felt natural, unforced. About half an hour later, the wooden door opened. I looked up. Alejandro walked in with Camila. She wore a tight red dress with matching lipstick, her arm hooked through his like a claim. Alejandro wore the gray blazer I had once picked out for him. The moment his eyes met mine, his smile froze. I didn't look away. My gaze remained fixed on them, cold and assured. Camila leaned in, whispering low only for Alejandro, but I read her lips. "What is she playing at?" Alejandro nodded slightly, trying to keep his face neutral. But I noticed his grip tighten on Camila's arm, a reflex to steady himself. Just then, Mateo took my hand, a firm, open gesture. I didn't pull away. Instead, I smiled at him as if the world had narrowed down to just the two of us. Alejandro hesitated for a second, then pushed Camila further inside. His back was stiff, every step heavy. In the reflection on the walls, I saw him looking back. His eyes were restless, as if he couldn't believe I was sitting there, radiant, next to another man. Mateo leaned closer, his deep voice just loud enough for Alejandro to hear. "Your smile is beautiful, Clara. I think tonight is going to be wonderful." I replied softly. "I think so too." Camila shifted uncomfortably. She glanced back again, her gaze sharp, inquisitive. Perhaps she realized what she had dismissed before. My silence had become a challenge. During dinner, I didn't need many words, just touches of my hand, my laughter at Mateo's stories, my calm glance towards their table. Every small gesture made Alejandro uneasy. He sat stiffly, pretending to converse with Camila, but his shoulders never relaxed. Camila, however, kept casting furtive glances. When Mateo refilled my glass, she bit her lip. When I laughed, she frowned. I didn't need to win right there. It was my composure, my quiet confidence that hit hardest. Alejandro was used to me arguing, crying. Now I was unbothered in his presence. That loss of control was his undoing. When we stood up to leave, I made sure to walk past their table. Mateo's hand held mine firmly. I gave them a small smile, nodding politely. "Have a wonderful evening. Enjoy your meal." Alejandro opened his mouth, but the words choked in his throat. Camila turned away, her eyes flashing irritation. As Mateo and I reached the checkout, I heard Alejandro's voice behind me. Urgent. "Clara, wait, we need to talk." I stopped. The entire restaurant turned, eyes curious. Alejandro approached, Camila trailing behind, her heels clicking against the wood. "What are you doing, trying to humiliate me in front of everyone?" My voice came out clear, firm for all to hear. "You wanted to test me, Alejandro. You've already lost." Some diners put down their forks, listening. Alejandro froze, his lips pressed tight. Camila was behind him, her face rigid, eyes like knives. I took a step forward, calm even to myself. No one calls moving in with another woman help. That's an excuse, a cheap excuse. Camila's mouth opened as if to object, but no words came out. I turned to her, my voice cold and clear. "He's not protecting you. He's using the situation to prop up his ego." The restaurant buzzed with murmurs. I caught the eyes of nearby diners, surprised at first, then pitying me, and finally looking at Alejandro with disdain. Camila's face drained of color. She grabbed Alejandro's sleeve as if seeking an anchor. Alejandro shifted, trying to maintain his composure, but beads of sweat dotted his forehead. He lowered his voice. "Clara, don't make a scene here. We can talk in private." I shook my head. "You chose to make it public, Alejandro. You filmed. You posted on TikTok. You turned your private life into cheap entertainment. So today, the truth will also be public." Mateo was by my side, silent but unwavering. His grip on my hand was proof that I wasn't alone. I turned back to Camila. "Do you think you're special? You are a tool for him to prove he can do whatever he wants, no matter who objects. Today it's me. Tomorrow, maybe it's someone else." Her eyes fluttered, the red lipstick on her lips rapidly paling. A nearby diner murmured loudly enough, "What a shame." Alejandro spun around, eyes blazing. "This is private. No one else has anything to do here." I crossed my arms, a cold smile crossing my lips. "You're the one who made it public. You wanted an audience, right? Now the audience has seen everything." Alejandro's mask cracked right where his stage once was. Camila dropped her eyes, silent. After that night at the restaurant, things for Alejandro deteriorated faster than he expected. The TikTok clips I had sent to his family and friends spread beyond his circle. No one saw him as a model man anymore. Instead, he became an object of mockery. A week later, I overheard Ricardo, Alejandro's best friend, at a coffee shop with some former colleagues. He shot himself in the foot. Who moves in with a girl, brags about it online while still having a girlfriend? No one trusts him anymore. I didn't need to interfere. The rumors alone were enough to shred the image Alejandro had built. His family didn't stay silent either. His mother called me, her voice trembling with disappointment. Clara, I don't even know what to say. I thought you would be the one to mature Alejandro, but now he's made himself a mockery. His father hasn't even wanted to attend parish council meetings these past few days. Too ashamed of the questions, I replied softly. I'm sorry for you, but this was Alejandro's choice. Camila reacted differently. She started appearing less by his side. On her social media, their shared clips slowly disappeared, replaced by vague statuses. Sometimes you realize you were just a prop for someone else's ego. I wasn't surprised. Camila had thought she had the upper hand. But now, with Alejandro's reputation in ruins, she saw she had gained nothing but gossip. One afternoon, Alejandro came to my door. He stood outside my apartment, stripped of his former confidence, his shirt wrinkled, eyes sunken, hair disheveled. He knocked, his voice. Clara, please give me a few minutes. I opened the door but blocked the frame, not letting him in. What do you want? Alejandro raised a hand, then let it fall, clumsy. I was wrong. Everything I did I thought made me look strong, but in reality, I lost everything that mattered. Friends left, family disappointed. Even Camila, she's pulling away. I realized the only person who truly supported me was you, Clara. My eyes no longer held anger, just tiredness and cold clarity. Alejandro, do you think a few apologies will erase everything? He took a half step forward, his voice desperate. One more chance. I'll leave Camila. Start over. Prove that. I cut him off, sharp and firm. You no longer have a place in my life. The word caught him. He froze, lips trembling, speechless. I continued. All you tried to prove only showed that you are a coward, that you always need someone else to show off your ego. I've had enough. His eyes reddened, his breathing ragged. But this time, I didn't falter. I continued, my tone quiet. Oh, by the way, I'm going to Italy. Alejandro's brow furrowed, startled. Italy? With whom? With Mateo. The trip is already planned. A week in Tuscany. It hit him like a punch to the gut. He staggered back half a step, eyes wide. You're leaving with him? Yes. With someone who respects, who listens, who doesn't turn love into a test. In that instant, I saw Alejandro break. His mouth opened, but the only word that came out was a fractured Clara. I shook my head slightly. Goodbye, Alejandro. Then I closed the door. The soft click shutting was like a heavy period, sealing the years I had wasted on him. Tuscany welcomed us with deep blue skies and rolling hills that stretched endlessly. I never thought I'd be in Italy at this point in my life. Even weeks before, I couldn't imagine having the courage to release the burdens that had tied me down for 2 years. Yet here I was, in a small hotel room in Florence, standing on the balcony overlooking a city that glowed gold at night. A glass of red Chianti gleamed in my hand, its aroma drifting on the air. Beside me, Mateo leaned against the railing, his dark hair falling across his forehead, his eyes soft but warm. He turned, smiling. What are you thinking, Clara? I sipped the wine, the tannins lingering on my tongue, then replied softly, I'm thinking that maybe I don't need to shout that I've won. Sometimes, living better is the clearest answer. Mateo nodded slightly, his eyes concurring without words. His hand covered mine, not possessive, but steady. I looked at the Florence night sky. Music drifted up from the nearby piazza. Musicians playing guitar, their voices carried by the breeze. Lights shone on the red-tiled roofs of the old houses. I remembered the nights in Boston, anxiously waiting for Alejandro's texts. The distance between those worlds was only weeks, but it felt like a lifetime. You know, I told Mateo slowly. Alejandro once told me that love was a test of trust, but in reality, it was an excuse for control. Mateo listened in silence. I continued with more strength. I used to think I had to prove, to argue, to defend my boundaries with words. But in the end, I realized that the best way was to abandon his board entirely, to write my own rules. Mateo squeezed my hand, his voice deep and warm. You did, and I think from now on, you'll never have to play anyone's game again. A night breeze swept by, bringing lavender from distant gardens. I closed my eyes, letting it run through my hair, my heart light as if I had shed a lifelong burden. For a moment, the image of Alejandro flashed by, confused, panicked, begging. But it no longer hurt. It was proof that I had escaped. I turned to Mateo, peace shining in my eyes. I don't need to declare anything. I don't need to scream about revenge because this happiness right now is already the most accurate blow. Mateo smiled, raised his glass, and gently clinked it against mine. Then, to the new rules. The soft clinking of the glass mingled with our quiet laughter. I gazed out. Florence unfolded like an oil painting. Winding cobblestone streets, ancient rooftops, shimmering under the moon. In that moment, I understood the message of my journey. When someone tries to test your boundaries, never let them dictate the rules. Don't waste time arguing in their spiral. The only way to win is to leave the game and write your own rules. I stood on that balcony in Florence, the night wind carrying away the last bit of bitterness. I knew the peace I now held was the most powerful answer to anyone who had tried to turn me into their pawn. If this story resonated with you, if you've had to fight for your dignity against manipulation, leave us a like. Subscribe to the channel to continue exploring more chronicles of love, betrayal, and emotional intelligence. Remember, your worth is not negotiable.